Hey good people, welcome to Fiddlehed Fiddle Lessons. We're going to continue the how to add variation to Irish tunes course. And in this lesson I'm going to show you how to add something that I call Jig Swing. It's basically adding a little bit of a swing feel to jigs. So like, and what we would do is we'd add a little. And so it's just kind of a subtle difference, but here's the whole idea in a nutshell. You have three notes. The first one gets lengthened, second one gets shortened, the third stays the same. So for all the different types of ornamentation we could add to these tunes, this is a good one to get started with because it doesn't require a high degree of technical ability. Your fingers don't even need to move super fast. It's just a friendly way to start experimenting with variation. And I want you to really think about it as an experimental process. You're kind of like a scientist when you get in there, and we're going to be learning to have like a basic version and a variation, or like a control group, like in a science experiment, and the experimental group. The experimental group is the variation. Okay, so and if you this is basically an intermediate lesson. Just to let you know, if you're really a beginner, you may want to hold off on learning this stuff. Okay, so anyway, what I'm going to do is I just want to play a simple exercise, get you doing it. That's the best way to learn stuff, is to just jump in and start doing it. So we're going to start with just an open D string. And whenever you're practicing, always think, what's the simplest way I could practice something? And if it's a bowing thing, maybe you can just practice it on an open string, plant your left hand here so you can just fully focus on that one detail. So we're going to do a straight triplet, and then we're going to do it with jig swing. Actually, I'm just going to show you jig swing on open D would be like. So we have an extra long note followed by an extra short note followed by an eighth note. So for those of you who read music, the first note would be a dotted eighth, the second would be a 16th, the third would be an eighth note. So that's the basic rhythm we're going to use and implement. But now what I want us to do is a pattern where we alternate straight triplet, which is our basic, with this variation. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now what I want us to do is loop that more slowly together. Count you in 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it a little faster. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and so now let's add a little melodic pattern. Let's try this out with D open, 1, open. All right, so the straight would be, and then jig swing would sound like. All right, so now let's practice this alternation with a play along track. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, very cool. So to really master the feeling of this exercise, it's pretty simple what you have to do. You just have to play it 1,000 times. Repeat 1,000 times, 1,000 times. No joke, practice it 1,000 times. So that's no joke. You really do it, you really play something 1,000 times, you are going to be quite good at it. You know, of course, you got to pay attention to it and pay attention to your mistakes and the resistance you feel, but this is the way to become a master at something. By the way, I did not make up that expression. It was made up by Earl Scruggs, the famous banjo player, in one of his banjo books. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just kind of build on some things we've already done. So I call this this little melodic thing we did. It's a pattern you can do on scales. I like to give the scales like I have a little formula system to remember the various patterns. And this one is 1, 2, 1. A little confusing because it doesn't refer to fingerings, it refers to steps of the scale. So 1 being the first step, we're gonna go bum, 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 1, 2, 1. And then the next step, you have a new 1. 1, 2, 1, and then 1, 2, 1. So what we'll do is we'll do the next step, which is fingered actually 1, 2, 1. And we'll do that with basic and then with jig swing. So basic, swing, basic, swing. Next step would be 2, 3, 2. So it'd be. And the next step would be 3, 4, 3. Or you could use open A, a little bit more awkward. Open A now. All right. We can continue this way and do an entire scale. Another thing you could do would be to just play the jig swing on the scale. So that would sound like, I'll do it a little slower. Okay, so basically this is it. You've got the basic idea. I'm just going to give you practice suggestions from here on out. So once you get this pattern down, like I actually think it might be good to start it with separate bows. And then try to do some slur patterns. Slur 3. Then we could do slur 2 separate 2, like slur 2 separate 1. I like to start that down bow. And another pattern could do be separate 1, slur 2. And then in addition to that, we could practice this jig swing with different patterns. We could practice it with the 1, 2, 3 pattern. So the basic version of the 1, 2, 3 pattern is. And that's basically for every step of the scale, we play that note, and we play the one above it and the one above that. And so we could practice that with jig swing. And then there's one more melodic pattern I'll give you, which is 1, 3, 1, in which we skip a step. So it'd be like, the first step would be open D to D2, then D1 to 3, D2 to 4, D3 to A1, open A. All right, so that's about it for exercises, and now I'll just give you a few suggestions for some jigs you can add it to. So let's look at the second bar of Kerfunken Jig. Actually, I'll just play the whole first quarter. So we're gonna add the jig swing to the second bar, which is, we're gonna add it on the first set of the first triplet. We're gonna go. Subtle difference, right? Here's the basic again. variation. All right, so yeah, it is quite a subtle difference, but it's enough to kind of give a very nice flavor to the music you make. So I'll give you a few more examples. Let's do Tobin's jig. Nice one if you love triads, or at least sort of like them. So we can add the jig swing, and you can just experiment with different places. In my version, I added it on the second triplet. And here's the basic again. Variation. Variation. Let's do another example. Swallowtail jig, the first quarter. I'm going to add jig swing to the first three notes. Basic again. Variation. One more example, Rolling Waves, the tune I began with in the lesson. That's the first bar. I'm going to add jig swing to both those triplets. All right. So that's pretty much it. In summation, you want to create little loops where you go between the basic and the variation, and you can experiment with doing bigger pieces. Like you can do a single bar, or you can do the first quarter that way, and you can work your way up to doing a whole tune with very basic and then a whole version with variation, and just kind of you're always testing, you're always listening to how it sounds and if it's working or not. So anyhow, hope that's fun, and now you know what I'm going to say next. Go fiddle with it. Go to fiddlehed.com for a progressive, step-by-step course outline, color-coded tabs, play-along tracks, sheet music, and much more. Thanks for watching the videography. Excellent! And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.